Hi all, it's me Aki from Bring Forth, and this is set 32 part 1. As far as I know of, could be that I haven't updated my previous one, and I still don't have my music on, so this is gonna take a moment. I'd like to talk about white supremacists and brown supremacists, or white supremacists and Islamic immigrants, or in this case, radicalized Islamic immigrants. Not immigrants in and of themselves, but rather the 20% of immigrants who have been radicalized and are actually, or rather 20% of Islamics who've been radicalized and are brown supremacists. I'd like to ask, due to the discussion in Bring Forth, which has been going on for some days about Islam, I'd like to ask why people think that brown supremacists are better than white supremacists. They are indeed the same group or the same ideology. And I'd like to counter to the argument saying that we've destroyed their country, as saying that that is a complete load of horseshit. They destroyed their own country by allowing the side of our society that is hostile to them to immigrate into their country, and we are now doing the same by allowing the side of their country that is hostile to us to immigrate into our country. This is the back and forth of violence that I wrote about in my book very extensively. That when one side does a violent thing, and the other side starts to do the same violent thing, there's a tendency to support the defending side in the violence, but that is incorrect because both sides are actually just violent. Because it is easy to forget that violence never breeds in a vacuum. Violence starts from violence, and because historic violence has been around, you have a very high tendency in noting this violence that happens around you to only see the side that started it during your lifetime and not the lifetime before you, and not understanding that the violence has been going on for a long time. So, had we been the guys who lost the last war and being the ones who immigrated into the Islamic community at this time, we would be very, very much hard-pressed and even harder pressed than the Islamic immigrants are in moving to Europe, and this is the historic tendency. The Islamic community is very hard to immigrate into. It is very secular, or secular is the wrong word. It's very, what's the word that starts with the S that is isolated? It's, can't remember the word. It's either way very hard to immigrate into the Islamic community without being an Islamic individual. It is very hard. So you have to look at the world religious map, which is easily findable on Google, to see how actually predominant the Islamic religion is in its own region, so that when you actually look at the map, you will notice that a lot of these countries are actually at near 100% for the Islamic part of the population, where nobody else gets any rights. And this is just the way it goes, because this religion is just the way it goes in its own region, if this is easier to understand. In Europe, we have these things called atheists and agnostics, which are in the Islamic community exceptionally rare. These regions are almost entirely Islamic in that there is no room to have a different opinion. This isn't the case with the entire region. You will always hear people from countries like Lebanon saying that this isn't the case. But you have to understand that Lebanon is the size of Israel compared to the United States. It's a small region of the entire region, and most of the Islamic world is such that you can't actually live there if you are not a Muslim. This is the way it has been for a very long time. So I would like to ask, what is the difference between a white supremacist and a brown supremacist, other than the white supremacists are your people and the brown supremacists are the people who are against you, in the way that this is most often talked about in the Western context? It is appalling to see somebody who is committed to seeing the world only in their own group and only in their own value But it's even more appalling to see somebody who does it for a group that's not your own, because you can't differentiate between their attempts to be kind to you in a way to get you to join them and their actual society. You will see only their best side, and the worst sides of their culture are hidden from you because they don't want you to see them. Because it is a warlike action, it is a warlike attempt to get them to be on your side. And they will do anything to lie about their culture in any way they need to get you to sign up with them. This is what war is like. It's the standard for warfare. So I would like to say that refugees don't have any right to exist in Germany if they go through to Germany from another country in the European Union. This is actually something that was written into the EU laws a long time ago, so that this very situation is avoided, and it's been ignored by the European Union people. It clearly states that if you enter the European Union as a refugee, the country you entered through as first outer layer of the European Union is the one that actually gets you. So these immigrants shouldn't be going to Germany and Finland and Norway and these countries that are far from the border. They should be going to Spain and Italy and Romania, and we should be paying for them to start camps, because it is unsafe for these people to travel once they've already reached the safe area, to travel further, because they get themselves into more danger. So these countries actually are ignoring the EU law, which states that they should not allow these immigrants to pass through their countries and they should start camps for them. The problem with this is that most people think that immigrants who are refugees should be attempted to integrate into society, and this is blatantly wrong. Immigrants who are refugees should not be integrated into the society they go to. They should be protected for the time that their country is going through a war and then repatriated. Not everybody, but a lot of people in this debate actually forget that refugees should be repatriated. They should be sent back to their country of origin as soon as the war is over. And this is the very core of being a refugee instead of being an immigrant. We aren't talking here about immigrants who have a good standard of life, who want to improve their life even more by moving to another region. We're talking about people who fled war and are continuing to flee through safe countries to get to a better country. They aren't fleeing the war anymore, they're fleeing poverty. And these aren't refugees, they are people who just don't have anything. And getting people like this into a country that's already inundated with unemployment will get them to be hated by everyone, because it carries absolutely no sense. When you are a refugee fleeing a war, the first place that is safe is your home, because it's the least distance away from your own home country, so it'll be easier for you to repatriate back into your own country. So people forget that refugees don't benefit from a long distance travel, they benefit from a short distance travel. We should be paying countries like Turkey and Romania and Spain and Italy to find refugee camps that are sufficient to house all the refugees, and they should be stopping the refugee flow to us. That is what we should be doing in the north here. And the Syrian refugees should be housed in Turkey or in Romania or in Bulgaria. Bulgaria is the first European Union country. When you look at the map, it's either Bulgaria or Greece, and they should be doing the hard work and we should be paying them. This should be the way that this is done, because refugees don't benefit from learning the German language when their country is Arabic. They should be learning the regional Arabic dialect of their neighboring country, because that is closer to their home. So, in short, there is no difference between a white supremacist and a radicalized immigrant. They are the very same group. And you have to understand that according to every scientific study that we've done, roughly 20% of the Islamic community is radicalized. They are white supremacists. It's easy for the human rights activist who has the actual money to run away from their problem when it goes wrong to say that we should be the guys who give them everything. and then they flee their own countries because this is what they do. So in short, I would like to state that Islamic immigration, Islamic refugees, white supremacists, and radicalized Islamic immigrants is a topic that is really commonly misunderstood. You see a lot of people who don't have any kind of idea how bad it is for a refugee to flee through 10 countries to a neutral country instead of fleeing to the neighboring country. And back in prehistory, back in the Second World War period, most of the Finns who fled the war were children, and they were unescorted and they were going alone, and they fled to Sweden. They didn't flee to the Americas, and as soon as the war was over, a lot of them were repatriated, except for those who the families who they were fled to wanted to keep them, and they launched a court case about it or attempted to keep the child. So in short, we don't want to let radicalized Islamic people into this region, and to do so is humane towards the Islamic peoples who are already in this region. The same way China doesn't want to let radicalized Americans into their country to protect the Americans that are already in their country. That is the way it goes. You have to have the right to flee from the people who are violent towards you, and to actually see that the violent people don't get brought into the country a second time. So that is about the extent of it. My aura is glowing really brightly. Anyway, that is all. Thank you.